CommunityPulse is a free resource for the Flowgrammer community that allows AI automation agencies to get their foot in the door with local businesses by offering a free damage control and reputation management SaaS software. And so the first piece of this is being able to collect recent negative and unanswered reviews from local businesses. However, if we went about this using the Google Places API, you'll quickly find that there's several limitations. Um, First of all, this leverages AI agents, but in a very, very minimal way. You can see that there's no tool calling, and that most of the logic is done through HTTP requests and through several transforms using set nodes and as well as code nodes. And so this is not very modular or extensible, although it does deliver a final script. But because of the way that Google Places APIs are set up, you'll see that there's actually two different API endpoints that you need to query. One is the API endpoint that allows you to get the address and to return a list of places. But in order to get the reviews, you actually need the place ID. And this API call is limited to one place ID. You would need to first grab all of the place IDs and loop over each of the places one by one, which is a lot of API calls. And frankly, you could get, rate limited. Now, one way to do this is to use Brightdata's web scraper, but you could also go to Brightdata's marketplace datasets. You'll be able to find, a pretty large variety of datasets, including the Google Maps reviews dataset. And so with this, you can actually get updated reviews within one data set without having to call two separate endpoints. And you'll see that, there is more than enough records for you to go through here. What I wanted to demonstrate here is just how powerful n8n's AI agent node is and how good n8n's AI agent is at recognizing the system prompt that you give it. Even though that the system prompt has multiple phases, and it has several different tools available for the AI agent to call. The way that you're able to sort of set this up in n8n by setting the system prompt and then also setting a description for each of these tool calls that will map onto the system instructions, it's able to identify the correct tool to call and the sequence in which to call them. And so tool chaining becomes a much more flexible and sort of extensible way to reach your goals. And just to give you an idea of why this is so easy to work with and flexible compared to having to set up sort of if-and conditions and switch statements, or even to code the switch statements into your program in a backend server, I'm going to show you what the workflow kind of looks like if you had to set this up manually without the AI agent being able to call tools by itself. And so this is the exact workflow that the agent goes through, but it's making all of these decisions by itself. So as you saw on the previous page, we have a chat memory, we have an LLM attached to the AI agent, and this is the beginning point where I'm using a hosted chat trigger, which you'll see in the demonstration, but you can also turn it into an embedded chat trigger, or you can also switch the chat trigger for a webhook so that you can make HTTP requests to it. But of course, you'll have to set up your own API routing and endpoints in your server. So, I'll put this up later. So, if you're interested, you can take a look at it. But as you'll see, basically, I'm trying to show that each of these nodes and steps that you see here, if you were trying to code this into a server logic or into your front-end logic, each of these nodes that you see here would be, a set or transform or a switch node that you would have to go through in order to go, right, including the looping logic, in order to give you the result that you want. But if we go back to the workflow where we're basically just setting a system prompt, it is modular because if you wanted to make any changes, all you would have to do is identify the specific action that you've asked the agent to take in the different phases, or to swap out entire phases, or to change the different sort of sub-steps within the phase. You just need to go here and using natural language, change the system message, and then you would go find the corresponding tool. Let's say we're looking at the create snapshot tool. All you would have to do is then also change this description so that it maps onto your system message. So it's a little bit easier and more foolproof in terms of selecting the right tool. Let's demo what this AI agent can do with just these tool calls. And, spoiler alert, GPT-4.1 mini. So what I've done here is attached a chat trigger node. I'm going to show it to you on a hosted chat, but you can very easily turn it into embedded chat, which you can put into your front end app. Or if you wanted to sort of have more customization options, you can definitely swap this chat trigger node out with a webhook node, which will allow you to send HTTP requests to the AI agent. So all you have to do is copy the chat URL here, since I've already published it, made it active. So let's go over to the chat here, and I'm going to refresh this to make sure that we're starting a new session, and then I'm going to ask it for this is in. I'm going to spell Canada wrong, because that's the great thing about using a LLM model, which is that you can just, it'll catch these by itself. Yes. Instead of having to build it into your logic. So all right, so it's going to take a little bit to make the call to the Bright Data node, or the Bright Data tool node that's attached to the AI agent in order to generate that snapshot. Which, if we look here at the data that we have here, we'll see that, yep, okay, we got a new snapshot and it's ready. If we go back to the chat window, we'll see that, okay, it's given us 5 businesses, and so now we can select one. Okay, so let's say that I want to look at the Radisson Hotel St. John. Great, it's giving me a script. And then now it's asking me, would I like more scripts for businesses? Yes. Let's do Slack. Okay, so now I'm going to pull up my Slack, and let's see how well it does at this. Okay, perfect. Now we see that it's come through, and we have, here we go, we have all 5 scripts. Now here's where this is significantly better than having to build it out yourself, right? Because if, for example, I built this using the without using the agent tool call, I would have had to build in the workflow if I wanted, if the user wanted the email. But I can just ask the LLM, can you also send this to me by email? Okay, so to my and now it's going to take a little bit to, so now it's going to call the, let's take a look here. Now it's going to call the tool, now it's going to call the Gmail tool. And so, we've specified here to use this tool to deliver a generated script to the user via email. And we'll need the input required if missing, prompt the user for the email address. That's where you saw the AI, or that's where you saw the agent ask me. Great, and I think that's a signal that we got it. So let's take a look here. Perfect. 9:20, 0 minutes ago. That was pretty fast. And so now you'll see that it's also delivered it to my email. Great. So yeah, super easy to configure. Now let's go back to our workflow here. So you see that it was able to, let's go back to the chat. Now you can give it additional requests. And so that's what's really great about using tool chaining and allowing the AI agent to make these decisions about what tools to use, because you don't need to build out all of the different workflows. So for example, if I wanted to extend on this ability, I would have had to go through, map out all the new features that I wanted to build, the if-and conditions, the try-catch blocks. But with this, I can just literally change the system prompt or the system message here, as well as add additional tools. There are a bunch here that you can use, including if you wanted to add additional guard rules and you wanted to minimize the transfer error, you could also add in the MCP client tool, as well as if you wanted to add in a vector store, and you have documents that you want to query. So as you can see, you can already do a lot with these very, very simple tool additions. And I've only showed you the Bright Data tools in context of um, the Google Maps review data set. This is the only one that I generate snapshots for. But if you wanted to, there are a ton of different, very useful data sets that you can use, like LinkedIn, Crunchbase, if you're into like venture capital, or if you want, you can also use PitchBook and Zoom Info if you're building out company databases for like private equity, or if you're doing sort of industry research. So let me see what else I want to cover before we wrap this up. So I just wanted to address this part very quickly. This is sort of the core functionality that I built out here. And, you can already use this to do a lot in terms of prospecting and narrowing your sales funnel. If you wanted to sort of build on this, it's very easy to build additional sub workflows, which you'll need to build in a different workflow file than this. But if you build those sub workflows, you can then connect it here. This is the execution node, right? So this executes your sub workflows. And so I have here a execution data node. And so this will allow you to store key value pairs. And the reason why I did this is because if you have just simple memory setup, you're not going to be able to store key value pairs into this, because this is, chat memory and it's not persistent. Of course, I have Postgres here, but if you were just using the simple memory, if you're just using a simple memory node on the AI agent, you can't store key value pairs and persist it. So if you want to store, for example, the if you wanted to store, for example, the output of this node, which gives you a snapshot ID for this data set, right? Like these snapshot IDs. If you want to go back and retrieve the snapshot IDs, you can store the key value pairs here and pass it on to your sub workflow. So it's it'd be very easy to then add on, for example, like a sales funnel, or to schedule delivery. So if you want to get 10 scripts in the morning, every morning you want to send these scripts to different salespeople, and then track that using Salesforce, as well as any notes you want to make on those calls. Like that'd be pretty easy to do. And I also include this here. If you wanted to package this into an email outreach, it would be also very easy to do. All you have to go here. All you would have to do is go here, change your system prompt to replace the phone script with an email script. You can conditionally set this using this router. So this is a send and wait node, which is basically a human in the loop process, which allows you to approve the message or approve the email and edit it before you send it to the client. But you need to add a respond to chat node here in order to return that to your hosted chat. Of course, it'd be different if you're using an HTTP request, but this is a way to do it if you just wanted to manage everything in your chat window. Yeah, so all in all, I think this was this is really fun, and you can do a lot of experimenting and prototyping with just this, and it's fairly easy to pick up if you spend a little bit of time looking at docs. And one of the great things about n8n is that they have this built-in option where you can chat with docs, and so you can get really good insight into exactly how to build things. And this is really helpful because sometimes if you're just asking, say, Claude or ChatGPT for some of the information about how you can build with n8n, it can give you kind of outdated sources, because there's more, because n8n is constantly updating its product offering. And so if you're asking generic LLMs, it's going to go out and search the generic body of literature. Of course, there's going to be more docs on sort of like older implementation. So you're going to get some like outdated stuff and miss out on some of the functionality. Or in some cases, if you're they'll apply they'll apply knowledge from old docs or sort of older versions of nodes to these new versions of nodes that you're using, and it's gonna break. So yeah, would highly recommend checking this out. And yeah, happy building.